Thank you. Senator Risch.
Ms. Stone Manning, we're going to talk today about the Lava Ridge project. You're familiar with it?
Yep.
Okay, that's good. I represent 1.8 million angry people, angry at you personally. And it isn't just the people of Idaho. We've got the legislature voted unanimously, House and Senate, objecting to this project, saying don't do it. We have the 7 Idaho counties that are affected unanimously adopting a resolution of disapproval, saying don't do it. Your own BLM Resource Advisory Council voted unanimously not to do this and said don't do this. The Shoshone-Bannock tribe submitted 2 comment letters in opposition to this project. The Friends of Minidoka Pilgrimage Planning Committee, and Japanese American Citizen League, who operate the sacred ground in there where they had a Japanese internment camp in World War II, said, don't do this. We don't want this. We are angry about this. And I want to put this anger for you into perspective that you will understand. You remember previously your foray with Idaho was engagement in a conspiracy to spike trees in the national forest in Idaho. You recall that after you did that, the people that were charged, that you testified against in return for an immunity agreement, went to prison over it. Idahoans were angry. They were angry with those people. They were angry with you. Now they're seeing the same thing out of you because none of them want the debauchement of this 100,000 acres with these 660-foot towers on it. So, do you understand how angry we are about this?
Senator, I can hear the anger in your voice, and I know that change is difficult. This wind proposal is big, but what we did do with your constituents was listen very hard, and the proposal now—
No, you didn't.
The proposal now is halved, and yet it will still provide energy for up to 500,000 homes, almost a gigawatt of power.
Where are those homes located? I'll tell you, California. You know that. You think that makes us happy? Why don't you put this project in California? If they need the energy so bad, do it down there. We don't want this project in Idaho. So I have a question for you. You did this, by the way, you were talking about the shortage of your manpower. You put out this 832-page environmental impact statement that's nothing but drivel. In this statement, you know what I can't find? Anybody who supports this from Idaho. Can you name somebody or some entity in Idaho that supports this project?
Senator, I have seen a couple hundred comments in support from
Compared to how many opposed?
I don't know the vote count.
I'll help you out.
Yeah.
It's in the tens of thousands. Nobody wants this. Nobody wants this. Can you name anybody or any entity that wants this?
Senator, the anger that you're talking about is of concern to me on the ground. I'm not going to rise to the rhetoric and name names.
So what are we going to do about this? With all the opposition from Idaho and us getting no benefit out of this whatsoever, what are we going to do about this? Did you just set that aside and proceed on? Who wants this? Who is it that's pursuing this? Is it you?
Senator, we responded to an application from a company to develop public lands. It's what we do every day.
So it is a company that came forward and you're responding to them and ignoring 1.8 million people plus the entire establishment of our government in the state of Idaho. You're ignoring that for the company that came in and said, oh, here, we want to debauch 100,000 acres and put 241 windmills up on this land. That's how you're going to proceed.
Senator, the final EIS does call for that. The original proposal called for 400 turbines, and we listened to your constituents. We listened to—
You didn't hear any constituents say cut the 400 in half. Every constituent said, don't do this. So you didn't listen.
Senator, I hear the frustration and anger in your voice. We have issued the final environmental impact statement. It, of course, is not the final decision. That comes at the record of decision phase.
You know, I warned everyone when your confirmation was up If you had someone who had such disrespect for the natural resources of America, for our country, and for my state, Idaho, this is what we were going to see. You ought to be ashamed. The administration ought to be ashamed. The Secretary of Interior ought to be ashamed. This is awful, awful, awful management of our public lands. It's not multiple use, it's abuse of our public lands. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator.
Thank you for your service. Thanks for being here. I think we start with the public lands rule. And I, again, want to discuss its impact on the clean energy deployment, particularly at the state and local levels. Some clean energy advocates worry that the rule is going to hinder projects if it's not properly implemented, if we don't get the right framework in place. How well you collaborate with state and local officials to ensure we continue advancing clean energy. We get to those goals in clean energy on public lands.
Senator, thanks for that question. We work very closely with our partners in the states. The Fish and Game agencies are critical to our work, informing our work about where we should avoid developing and where it's okay to develop. I think the public lands rule is going to help renewable energy development in a couple ways. Again, it's going to make, now that we are assessing all of our work against land health standards, all of our work is going to be more durable. The mitigation portion of the public lands rule that allows mitigation leasing on our public lands will give these energy development companies the ability to offset their impacts. And that kind of mitigation typically had been done on private ground, and now we have a consistent way to invest those dollars on our public ground. There's just great conservation success for mitigation, and now we get to see that success on public lands.
Great, thank you. Another issue, separate issue completely, we continue to be falling behind in securing critical minerals, essential minerals, the kinds of things we're going to need to really make a transition to a clean energy economy. Lithium, copper, I mean, we're going to need more copper than we've ever really imagined. And we're falling behind in securing supply chains for these minerals. And consistently, that's making us more and more vulnerable to our rivals like China that are investing more and making, and I think, setting up broader, larger supply chains. Given BLM's role in permitting and resource production on federal lands, how are you coordinating with the Department of Defense, for instance, or the Department of Energy to ensure reliable supply chains for our critical minerals and overall our energy security?
Senator, thanks for the question. One of the frustrations about the 1872 mining law is that we don't get to drive what kind of minerals we're going for and where. We react to proposals that come in the door. And I'm proud to say that we've permitted 5 critical mineral mines in this administration. We have another big one in the works at Rhyolite Ridge. The Thacker project is going forward, is going to produce probably 20% of the world's lithium supply. So we are working very hard to, again, get these projects done and again, make sure they're durable and stand the test of time.
Well, I appreciate that. It's strange bedfellows in a way that people that really believe in protecting the environment recognize climate change and need to find ways to get minds open in order to protect the planet from severe change.
It's what I love about the BLM. The multiple use mission is hard, and it's why our employees are so excited to go to work every day, because they like hard things. Gluttons
for punishment, I might say.
Maybe.
Obviously, BLM offers access to the great outdoors on many different levels. In Colorado, it's just as you know, it's a really big deal, from hiking to mountain biking to fishing to all manner of outdoor recreation. Just on BLM lands alone, we have about $1.4 billion of economic activity, which is basically about 10% of our overall $14 billion economic activity on outdoor recreation in total. But along with the abundance of great trails in the BLM lands, there's also a major need to maintain these lands. And so how is your agency responding to the growing interest in BLM lands and, this risk that people are going to love them to death?
Yeah, thank you for that question. 82 million people visited our public lands last year, a record. I think that they were rediscovered in the pandemic and folks aren't going back, which is a great thing, right? That people love their public lands they want to visit. I asked the team to put together a recreation blueprint for the 21st century to help guide our work. We haven't been seen as a recreation agency, but the American public sure sees us that way. And so we're trying to catch up using this recreation blueprint to then get some state implementation plans to help guide the work. Funding is an issue. For every visitor to Park Service lands, there's $5.20 appropriated. For every visitor to Forest Service, it's about $1.70. For us, it's 79 cents. So we're doing a lot with a little, and that means we're going to have to create partnerships. Very excited about the Foundation for America's Public Lands that is helping us build those partnerships so that we can get the resources we need to take care of these lands.
Great. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
Senator Murkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Stone Manning, you've said that what BLM does every day is try to achieve balance, but yet in my state, in Alaska, it seems that you have abandoned any pretense of balance. Except for the reapproval of Willow following the law, we appreciate that. BLM is restricting development however and wherever it can. And we've seen this in our petroleum reserve, we've seen this in the 1002 area through the public land orders, the resource management plans, the rejection just recently of the Ambler Access Project. It feels like an onslaught to me, and it's not just me that's noticing this. It is other people who are making a joke out of it. It's not a joke. You see, they're putting sanctions on oil and gas production. Where? Iran, Venezuela? No, Alaska. It's a red state. It's a joke there, but it's not a joke back home. It's not a joke at all because it has direct consequences on our jobs, on our revenues. It hurts our energy, our mineral security. Despite the press releases coming out of the administration, it doesn't help the environment because what it's doing, it's helping to degrade global ecosystems by incentivizing foreign projects to move forward without the protections and the standards that we would have here. So I'm angry, I'm frustrated. You know that I've suggested that we need to clean house, we need to cut BLM's budget, at least until the agency realizes that they've got to follow federal law, that it actually matters, that the commitment to balance matters. So let me start my questions with something that we just learned about yesterday. And unfortunately, we didn't learn about it from BLM. We didn't learn about it from DOI. We learned about it from the governor's office, who asked for information from my office about what's the deal with PLO 5150. So you know very well what I'm talking about. BLM recently finalized its Central Yukon Resource Management Plan, its RMP, and as part of that, BLM decided not to lift PLO 5150 for the TAPS pipeline corridor. The state had selected this decades ago as part of its statehood entitlement. And by law, BLM is supposed to convey the selected lands in a timely manner. They hadn't been moving on it, so I passed a law 20 years ago. My law in 2004 directs BLM to lift PLOs in Alaska. And then in 2006, BLM recommends lifting PLOs on over 50 million acres and recommended that the best way to do that is through the RMP process. So we've got an RMP process. We got it for the Central Yukon. That's been going on for over a decade. And now what happens? BLM reverses course from the previous administration, refuses to lift PLO 5150 as part of its land planning process. Instead, they got a new promise here. What we're going to do is launch a new process with a tiered environmental assessment as soon as the Central Yukon plan was finished. And this is going to allow BLM to finalize the RMP and then move forward on a compromise for PLO 5150. And this was going to be a compromise developed by the state of Alaska that would protect subsistence and involve far less changing ownership. We didn't really think that that was perfect, but everyone that I knew of was willing to support it. BLM repeatedly, until like last week, told my office and Alaska DNR that they were going to do it. And so the state worked with the BLM for more than a year. And you're very well read into this because you drove the Dalton Highway last summer with the commissioner and the deputy commissioner. And then this week, we learned, nope, it's not happening. It's over. The plan is dead. The commitment is revoked. The Central Yukon RMP is over. It's done. There won't be a supplemental process to lift the outdated PLO for the pipeline corridor. I don't understand how you can sit here, how those in your department, all the way up to the secretary, can sit here and make these empty promises and then break them whenever you feel like you want to break them. And so I want to know, who canceled BLM's commitment to move forward on the state of Alaska's compromise on PLO 5150? And if it wasn't you, who was it?
Senator, I know this is really important to you. I know it's really important.
It's really important, and we got zero word, zero, nothing. Is it happening?
I wouldn't call it canceled.
Okay, what would you call it?
My conversation with the commissioner last week was about how we're up against some timing issues and some workload issues throughout the department.
What does that mean?
And our plates are full, and that we're not moving forward with the EA in the timeline that we had originally
I don't
discussed.
understand what you have just said. Is the project canceled?
No.
Is the project delayed?
The EA is, I guess delay is
Is
the
the
right.
project delayed for the duration of this administration, or are you continuing to work on it? Is it dead as far as your office is concerned?
Senator, no, it is not dead as far as my office is.
Then what's happening?
As I was saying, our plates are full. I like to make sure that we get things done and
Who made this decision?
done well.
Who made the decision?
It was a collective decision about workload, which I always have.
Was it you? Was it someone at the department, or was it out of the White House itself?
It was a collective decision about workload with the department.
With the department, so the White House wasn't directing this?
Not that I know of.
Okay, I'm actually just stunned with your response here today. You knew we were going to have an opportunity to discuss this, and the fact that you can't give me really a straight answer as to where you are. Workload, give me a break. You've been working on this for 10 years. 10 years. And now you've come and you can't tell me whether or not it's canceled, it's delayed, if it's going to continue, if it's dead for the duration of this administration. My time is over, but I'm hopeful we have a second round.
Senator Wyden.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And I want to talk briefly about a bill that is really historic for Oregon, and that is the Malheur County Empowerment for the Oahe legislation. There has been gridlock on this issue for literally 50 years in my state. And now we've been able to bring together the ranchers and environmental folks. It's passed this committee. Senator Barrasso has given us valuable input, in terms of grazing flexibility, and we're very excited about what is at hand. And what we want to do is make sure, apropos of today, that issues like grazing, for example, is compatible with conservation objectives on the landscape. And I'd like to hear your thoughts with respect to the rule that you're talking about, because I'm particularly interested in getting input on how we keep building on this goodwill. In other words, it's not an accident that it's taken 50 years to get common ground. I mean, this is a very challenging area. People back east, for example, call this, Oregon's version of the Grand Canyon. my constituents call it home, and they want to have the ranchers and environmental folks get together. We've made a lot of headway. We continue to make more headway with respect to grazing flexibility. So tell us a little bit about how our approach fits in with what you all want to do, particularly on grazing.
Senator, thank you for the question. Grazing and conservation could and should and do go hand in hand. We're really clear about that in the preamble of the Public Lands Rule, that grazing done well is a tool for conservation. You and I have seen it on the ground. I have seen dry desert turn into riparian oases through grazing done well. And so we see our permittees across 155 million acres as partners in this work.
Will you commit this morning, because I think that what we're doing with grazing flexibility has a lot of potential. In other words, in my conversations with Senator Barrasso and other senators of both political parties, I said, you know, we're trying to get our Oahe legislation passed, but we got a concept here that can be, you know, a winner in an area, again, where there's been intractable kind of gridlock. And, you know, I look at what my ranchers say they want. They really just want some flexibility so that when they're doing good work, they're going after noxious weeds or something like that, they can have the flexibility to do it. So will you commit to working with the rural communities in my home state and in other states to make sure that we really look at ways to tie grazing and conservation and kind of other approaches so that there's flexibility for all users, and we don't operate under the assumption we're going to throw safety and environmental issues in the trash can. We're just getting some flexibility. Will you commit to working with rural communities in the days ahead in Oregon and elsewhere on getting that done?
Yes, Senator, I would be really pleased to do so. We do need those flexibilities.
Great.